Hey, what's up? John Sonmez from SimpleProgrammer.com. So I got this question about arguing. I think this is good because a lot of people struggle with arguing. Earlier in my career, if you might not believe it, but I was quite the arguer. I had to learn. Actually, what switched me from arguing was I read a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Highly recommend this book, but that stopped me from arguing. But I'm going to give some advice here based on some of that, and also from someone who I respect in the YouTube community for developers and IT is Eli, the computer guy. I'll actually put a link to his channel here because he's a pretty cool guy and he's got some good advice here. But anyway, it's a long email. I'll try to skip some of the parts. But he says, "Hi John, in your book Soft Skills, I remember reading your opinion on argument. You said it isn't a good idea to argue with everyone all the time and that many people don't form opinions solely based on logic, reason, and evidence." It's true. So a very literal-minded person like me might be inclined to argue with people all the time under the false assumption that you can convince them to change their mind if you present a more logical argument. Correct me if I got that wrong. It has been a while since I read it. You got that exactly right. And, you know, I don't know if you're married, but if you are, you know that that's true. but that's not just, you know, a lot of people say, oh, well, women are, you know, they're emotional and not logical. But so is everyone, to be honest, to some degree, right? Like, you think that people are rational. They're not rational. Human beings are not rational. That's why logical arguments do not work, because they're not rational. They're emotional. I guarantee you that emotion makes more decisions than rationality. But anyway, he says, "I think this advice is super solid, and honestly, until you pointed out, I never realized that other people don't base their opinions on facts and logic and evidence. No wonder I can't always persuade them." Okay, so I totally get how in your professional life you should try to avoid arguments if you can. I get how even in friendships and relationships you'd avoid arguing as well. However, I'm struggling. I find it extremely difficult not to argue when I think someone is wrong. Okay, sometimes I even feel it's a civic duty to educate others, and this often turns into an argument. For example, the other day I was talking to someone who didn't believe in evolution. We'll skip that part because I don't want to get into that argument. Anyway, he says, he basically goes on to say, the problem is I want to be educated. I would want to be educated if I was ignorant about something, so I try to treat others how I'd like to be treated. I honestly feel like I'm doing good for the world by trying to teach people things and by pushing back on their bullshit arguments. So he says, number one, am I doing good for the world, or is it truly pointless to educate an ignorant person? That's a good question. And two, is it pointless to argue? How can I get past this? I find it really condescending to simply let people believe what they want to believe. If I respect someone, I want to debate them and either teach them something or learn something from them. I'm simply not content to let someone I respect live their life with a blindfold on. What should I do? Wouldn't you want someone to tell if you're in a cult? Wouldn't you want someone to tell you if you're wrong? I would. So anyway, that's the gist of it. So basically it comes down to, you know, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying, John, about, you know, don't argue, but what about this case? What about when they're wrong? And that sort of defeats the point. And I understand, you know, you're coming from a place, I mean, most people when they're arguing, it's either coming from a place of pride or honestly trying to help someone. But people who don't want your advice won't take it. And here's the thing, is there's a way to basically go and possibly change someone's mind that isn't argumentative. And I'm doing it now. And it's to say, to basically say, okay, you know, and I borrowed this a little bit from Eli, the computer guy that I mentioned, is to take this sort of perspective of saying, okay, so asking some questions and maybe saying like, okay, so I understand that you believe this, and I could be wrong, right? That's a good phrase to practice, is I could be wrong, but I always understood this to be this, but maybe I don't understand something that you do, and that's why you're doing it this way. So could you explain to me so that I understand? And now you've opened it up. And now maybe they're going to be a little bit more high-minded and say, oh, okay, well, this is why I'm doing this, and and this is what I thought, but maybe I'm wrong. And why are you asking this question? Do you have a better way? Do you know something better, something different, right? It's asking questions. It's not assuming the other person's wrong, because see, here's what, when you send this email, you're telling me, what if they're wrong? What if they're in a cult? So you may think that, but don't project that. Instead, project that to say, hey, I just want to find out. I want to learn. I want to find out some more information. So let's talk. Let's talk about this thing, and ask them some questions. Ask them some things that you're not setting them up for a trap. It's a totally different thing. But you're just asking them out of curiosity. Why are they doing things this way? Why do they think that? Right? That kind of open-minded sort of way of getting through to someone is much more likely to have a result, because you don't have an agenda. I guarantee you, if you push on someone, they dig their heels in, right? You can try it. If you push someone, unless you get them off guard, but if they're expecting it, if they see you coming at them and you push them, they're going to dig their heels down. If you want to move someone, you gotta gently guide them, right? You can't have that agenda. That's the sure way to get into an argument. So. And coming just with the assumption that someone's wrong, that's what's going to happen, is so you just want to be a little bit more tactful about it, and it's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world if people believe wrong things. And to address your question about dealing with ignorant people, sometimes it's okay. Sometimes it's okay to let people just go ahead and believe what they want, and that you're not going to convince them otherwise, and you'll gain a lot of information by just playing dumb. To be honest with you, play like you don't know, like you don't know better, and just play dumb. And they'll reveal things to you that they wouldn't reveal to people that they think are more astute, and you'll get the upper hand in a lot of situations like that. So, I don't know. I mean, you got to be able to swallow your pride a little bit to be able to do both of those things, but you'll benefit more. But nothing ever really good comes out of an argument. You're not going to convince someone. You brought up the evolution topic. I didn't want to really go into it, but you're not going to convince someone that they're wrong about that. Not by arguing with them. No way. You can even punch them in the face and you're not going to convince them, right? So, and that's a good good measure to judge, is if you can't physically convince someone that they're wrong, then you're probably not going to be able to do it with your words. So don't even try. Instead, open up for discussion. Maybe you'll learn something. Sometimes you'll find out that you're wrong. If people feel like that you could admit that you're wrong, that you could be moved on the subject, then they're more likely to admit it. And I'll give you one quick tip that I use often, that's sort of a rapport builder, which is sometimes, especially if you're in an environment work with a very combative person who always arguing with you. Next time you get into an argument or quote discussion, and it's a small hill, not a hill that you're ready to die on, then just tell them, say, hey, look, you know what? Actually, you're right. You convinced me. I don't know what I was thinking, but you're right. You'll be picking their jaw up off of the floor, and you'll have built a huge amount of rapport with them, and they'll be more likely the next time that they're in an argument or discussion with you to give you that same berth, to give you that same courtesy. So that's kind of a good technique that you can do when you find yourself in this place, is to occasionally drop that, occasionally just like give up the fight and say, you know what, you convinced me, you're right. And no, honestly, you really did, and be sincere about it, because I just pick one spot where you're wrong. I'm sure that you have one. So anyway, hopefully you find that useful, and arguments to not be useful, because I don't know of any good that ever really has come of an argument. And maybe you do, but I've never found it in my life. So anyway, hopefully that helps you. If you have a question for me, email me at john@simpleprogrammer.com, and don't cry about it. I'll talk to you next time. Take care.